centuries, we have been deceived. The entire world has believed a monumental lie built upon mist and fragile assumptions. Easter Island, Rapa Nui, is not the cautionary tale of environmental self-destruction you were taught. It is a story of buried miracle, of astonishing resilience, and of secrets beneath the soil that will force you to redefine the entire history of humanity. What archaeologists just found deep beneath these iconic stone giants is not just historical fragments. It is the gateway to an advanced civilization, a trove of lost knowledge that has been sleeping under layers of earth and rock. What we believed were just heads turned out to be only the fraction of an iceberg, and what lies beneath is about to blow your mind. For years, textbooks, movies, and even the postcards you buy have depicted the Moai as solitary heads standing exposed, their faces blankly staring out to the ocean. That was a visual illusion created by time and nature. But for archaeologists, one question always lingered. How could a civilization supposedly on the brink of collapse have created these absurdly large structures? In 2010, Dr. Joanne van Tilburg and the Easter Island Statue Project decided to dig not to find more, but to answer one simple question. And what they discovered was no longer a question. It was a thunderbolt. As layers of volcanic rock and clay were meticulously removed, the century-old secret began to resurrect. Those solitary heads were not finished pieces. They were colossal, complete human figures standing upright and submerged up to 30 feet deep into the earth. Shoulders, chests, and arms folded across their stomachs, these were full ancestral figures, not mere busts. But what truly stopped the archaeological team, leaving them breathless, were the details that had been perfectly preserved in the eternal darkness of the earth. On the backs of these giants, a forgotten pictorial library was revealed. Complex carvings, geometric patterns, spirals, and symbols never before fully seen. This was the writing of the stone, a visual language deeply etched to tell the stories of the people who built them. Imagine this. Centuries of sunlight never touched these details. They were buried in darkness to preserve them from wind, rain, and the erosion of time. This was not accidental. It suggests that the Rapa Nui sculptors were not just crude stonemasons. They were master artisans, creating works that were meant to transcend time. Furthermore, they understood the sacredness of these statues. Every single one was positioned facing inland towards the villages. They were not looking out to sea, waiting for someone to arrive. They were looking upon their descendants, acting as eternal guardians, watching over a living community. The complexity did not stop at the body. Many Moai also wore massive hats called pukau, striking red stone cylinders. These were not mere decoration, they represented the top knots of important chiefs, a sign of power and prestige in the society. The bigger the hat, the more important the person the statue represented. This indicates that Rapa Nui society had an intricate, hierarchical structure that we grossly underestimated. It required an immense system of engineering, logistics, and social organization to not only quarry these huge red stone hats, but to transport and place them atop the heads of towering statues. But when archaeologists dug down to the statues' feet, they found a sight more eerie than anything imaginable. Scattered everywhere at the base of the Moai were stone tools, hammers, chisels, lying exactly where they were last used. It was as if, at a specific moment in history, everyone suddenly stopped working and walked away. Feel the urgency. A civilization at the peak of constructing the world's greatest monuments. Then silence. Previous theories suggested they were exhausted by war and famine. But why abandon these valuable tools? It was like a construction site placed under immediate lockdown. What happened at that precise moment that did not even allow a skilled craftsman to retrieve his hammer. For decades, the story of Rapa Nui always ended on a tragic note: ecological collapse. The inhabitants cut down all the trees, ran out of resources, leading to warfare, famine, and self-destruction. But in 2011, at the Rano Raku quarry site, archaeologists found something vibrant, red, and alive that directly contradicted this narrative. They discovered dozens of carefully constructed stone-lined storage pits filled with bright red pigment. This was no ordinary red. It was a special mixture made from hematite and magamite, iron oxides that created a powerful crimson color. What was truly shocking was the dating of these pits. They ranged from 1200 CE right up to 1650 CE. Think about that, 1650. That is well after the forests had completely vanished. According to the old theory, Rapa Nui should have been a ruin of war and starvation by this time. Yet instead, archaeologists found a large-scale raw material storage perfectly preserved, pure as if it had been prepared yesterday. This proves that even when faced with extreme ecological challenge, the Rapa Nui people were still organized, still creating and still maintaining large-scale traditions, producing, transporting, and storing this immense amount of pigment enough to paint hundreds of statues multiple times required a level of cooperation, leadership, and engineering that we have painfully underestimated. They were not a dying community, they were a thriving one, maintaining their cultural core. So, what were they using this sacred red pigment for? In Polynesian culture, red is not just a color. It is the color of power, spiritual energy, mana, and life itself. Archaeological evidence suggests this red was used to paint the Moai statues during important ceremonies. It was used on ceremonial objects and even on the bodies of the people during rituals. Imagine the scene. A colossal Moai covered in brilliant red paint under the sun. It is no longer a drab block of stone. It is a living deity, a direct conduit to the ancestors, radiating vitality and power. The greatest mystery, the revelation of the coral eyes. But to truly breathe life into these giants, another discovery was needed, one that completely changed the meaning of the Moai. For years, the statue's eye sockets appeared empty, lifeless. But in 1978, archaeologist Sergio Rao found fragments of white material scattered around an ahu. Soon he realized they were pieces of eyes. As the team reassembled these brilliant, white coral fragments paired with pupils made of black obsidian or red scoria volcanic stone, what emerged were not inanimate pieces of rock. They were the windows to the soul of the ancestor. The fitting of the coral eyes, called mata, was the final stage of the erection ceremony. A Moai only became truly alive once its eyes were in place. Furthermore, the statues were precisely aligned, so that their coral eyes would catch the sunlight at specific, important times of the day, perhaps during astronomical ceremonies. When modern researchers fitted replica eyes, the reaction was undeniable. One team member reportedly exclaimed, "This is disturbing." From being blind, mysterious giants, the Moai became vigilant protectors, seemingly focusing their attention on any approaching figure. The discovery of the eyes not only confirmed native legends about statues that could see, but also showed an incredible spiritual and technical sophistication. But if the secrets of the color and the eyes changed what we saw on the surface, the discoveries even deeper down revealed an entirely different dimension: subterranean architecture. During excavations around the Ahu platforms, archaeologists uncovered a system of intricate, hidden burial chambers beneath several platforms. These were not simple graves, they were engineered structures built using the same precise dry stone fitting technique without mortar as the colossal monuments above. These chambers were designed to withstand earthquakes, flooding, and the passage of time. Inside, they found the remains of high-ranking individuals, chiefs, priests, and master craftsmen, people who had earned the privilege of resting forever under the protection of the Moai giants. Constructing these chambers into solid rock, with massive stones fitted perfectly together, all done in secret, right beneath the Ahu. It proves an undeniable fact. Rapa Nui society was never primitive. They possessed engineering knowledge comparable to the world's greatest civilizations. The artifacts inside jewelry from distant islands, obsidian tools, also show Rapa Nui maintained a network of connections with other Pacific islands, challenging the notion of a completely isolated community. And here, underground, the small niches. On the Ahu platforms were finally explained. They were used to place offerings, food, water, precious gifts for the ancestors buried directly beneath. This redefined the Moai. They were not just monuments, they were living altars, the central point of devotion and ancestor worship. We've established that the Rapa Nui people were genius engineers, master artisans, and a resilient society that maintained its organization and traditions long after the trees were gone. So if they didn't destroy themselves, what caused the sudden silence? The answer lay in the modern laboratory. Archaeologists and geneticists analyzed ancient bone DNA and matched it against historical records. The results shattered everything we once believed. Genetic evidence shows the Rapa Nui population did not dwindle due to war or starvation. They maintained a healthy, stable community with continuous occupation, right up until the 1600s, even until the first European contact in 1722. Settlements and constructions were ongoing. The cautionary tale of ecological self-collapse turned out to be a historical distortion. The fateful day was April 3rd, 1722. The Dutch captain Jacob Roggeveen arrived at the island. This was the beginning of the end, but not in the way we thought. At the time, the Rapa Nui population was estimated to be between 3,000 and 4,000 people. They were an organized community strong enough to create the monuments we have witnessed. The catastrophe was not a slow, centuries-long process. It was a fast, sudden, and devastating event caused by external forces beyond their capacity to resist. The first killer was not wood shortage or hunger. It was disease. Smallpox, tuberculosis, syphilis. European diseases swept through a population with zero immunity. Entire families, entire lineages were wiped out in months. The social organization began to crumble, but the tragedy deepened. In the mid-19th century, another scourge arrived, the Peruvian slave raids of 1862 and 1863. In the span of mere months, over 1,400 Rapa Nui people, nearly half the remaining population, were kidnapped and shipped to South America for forced labors in mines and plantations. Most died from harsh conditions and illness. When the few fortunate slaves were freed and returned to the island, they inadvertently brought smallpox with them. An epidemic raged, killing most of the remaining population. The result? By 1877, the Rapa Nui population had plummeted from around 3,000 to just 111 survivors. A 96% decline in just over a century, a horrific humanitarian catastrophe that the world chose to blame on the islanders themselves. This sudden collapse explains the mystery of the abandoned tools we saw in Part 1 and the unfinished Moai statues at the quarry. Construction did not stop because of a lack of wood or internal strife. It stopped because no one was left alive to continue the work. And the greatest tragedy, within a single generation, the core knowledge vanished forever. The methods of carving Moai, the complex rituals, and even their unique Rongorongo writing system. There were simply not enough elders left to teach. But the story does not end in extinction. In the DNA findings of the modern population, an amazing truth emerged. They survived. Despite everything, the modern Rapa Nui community retains its deep Polynesian roots. They rebuilt their society from the handful of survivors, demonstrating an extraordinary strength of spirit and resilience. Today, The story of Easter Island is not a warning about the failure of a self-destructive civilization. It is a tribute to the brilliance and adaptability of a society that endured one of the most devastating external human tragedies in history. It is a testament to what a culture can withstand. From the buried bodies carrying ancestral messages to the red code defying collapse theories, and finally, the tragic truth of disease and slavery, archaeologists have not just found stones, they have found the soul of Rapa Nui. Hundreds of Moai statues are still sleeping beneath the soil. Countless burial chambers, countless secrets of the Rongorongo script still await decoding. If you were given the choice to continue the excavation of Rapa Nui, would you choose to decipher the writing mystery, explore more burial chambers, or unearth the remaining buried Moai? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The true history of Easter Island is only now beginning to unfold, and there is so much more waiting. Thank you for watching.